recording begin.
Hello.
Hello, Johnny. Dr.
Y-
Lovelace.
Yes. And everyone else, welcome to the Explore Simplexity podcast. We're doing a virtual meeting today.
Where we explore the mysteries of the universe.
Is that UHF, Word Al?
Exactly.
Oh man, if it's something I love. It's a good movie quote.
This is perfect for our topic today of humor and comedy.
Absolutely. And what is it? Why is it good? Is it bad? What does it mean when people can't take a joke? Cultural mean things maybe. I don't know. It's wide open.
And what is just punishment for an evil comedian?
What, a pie in the face, I think, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a cool topic actually. So, what is humor? Um, it's interesting.
Well, we could start maybe in the biology and then go up into the cognitive science stuff.
I feel like that's kind of generally how we've been going, and maybe that's how I think and how you think as well. So, let's try it.
Okay, so real quick plug. So Sapolsky has this book called Behave, or if you've seen his
Hmm.
online lectures, he talks about like what's happening the split second before you make a decision, like what happens a minute before you make a decision, and
Mm-hmm.
then what happens, an hour before your decision, a day. And then eventually he gets into, well, what happened before you were born that influences your decisions and just kind of like stretches the timeline back.
Yeah. So
That
wait, is this are we talking about free will or are we talking about humor here?
both.
Or both? Okay, cool. We're synergizing.
Yes.
Gotcha.
The comedian lives within the realm of the mind.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we could talk about comedy as an experience. We could talk about it like from a biological level, like are laughing hyenas actually laughing?
Right. Yeah, no. But there's definitely, I know certain kinds of apes do have like they laugh at weird things. I think it might be a more sophisticated behavior.
Well, what's fascinating to me is that infants laugh.
Hmm.
And it's like, what is like going on in their experience that they laugh? And that's
Yeah.
like super primal, right?
Hmm. And from what I understand, when they laugh or like, when you play peekaboo and they just find it absolutely hysterical, it's basically something that happens that's totally unexpected based on prior experience.
Mm-hmm. And given that there's
And
very little prior experience,
yeah, right. Or just something that just doesn't make sense, but it's in a context that isn't scary,
right, it's
right?
benign.
Yeah, right. And it's just like, oh, well, that's silly. I imagine that's just similar to why things seem so hilarious. Let's say if you're on marijuana or something, just just the way your mind processes things, just like that is so unusual or not what you would expect, and everything is just absolutely hilarious.
Exactly.
Hmm.
There's also this idea of like, I don't know how this or whatever, we'll let the conversation flow. Like you mentioned benign humor, or I like to call it mirth. It's this idea that's
Hmm.
just this like playful, free laughter.
Hmm.
And I've been reading a lot about attachment and like healthy development. And one element of that is this like free play idea. Like
Hmm.
it when all your or you could also think about it in terms of like Maslow's hierarchy, right? Like you have your base needs, then you have like your security, your position in society, and that's like, okay, it's time to play. But
Hmm.
or you could turn it upside down and think about it like red alerts up here, and then it's like, okay, as we get down into like, no yellow alert, we can start to play.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it does have something to do with play, and it probably has a very important social aspect to it.
For sure. And so there's like signaling that goes on. And part of that signaling, I was reading this other book that was really cool. It's about culture. It's called The Culture Code. And this guy tries to figure out what makes cultures function, like what makes them gel.
Hmm.
And I mean, I'm reading it for a couple of reasons. So number one, like I want to know where I fit in, where do I belong? I feel like I have a tribal wound or an identity, you know, what does it mean to be an American? Like, do I belong on the left or the right? Or, you know,
Hmm.
we talked a little bit about this. Like,
Hmm.
and what does it even mean to be an American in general? Like, we're really, as a culture, maybe I'm projecting. I am very confused in terms of where the culture is going.
I think a lot of people are.
Mhm.
And it seems like it's going in two main opposite directions.
Right.
But
Well,
maybe that's been happening for a while. I don't know.
but the thing that's so weird is like the in between, right? Because it's
Hmm.
almost like the people on the left have their own like language and code, and the people on the right have their own language and
Hmm.
code. And it's like, I think we talked about this last time. Like, if a dude gets shot up at a gay nightclub, you
Hmm.
have the story on the right and the story on the left that interprets that event.
Yeah, yeah,
And you get these completely different like stories and interpretations of reality with the same root evidence.
yeah, for sure. And just trying to, tie that back in with like humor, let's say.
Yeah.
What's interesting is it seems a lot easier to maybe be humorous or joke about things that are kind of in your zone of things that's okay. And like let's say the left and the right, and one joke could be extremely offensive to someone else,
Mhm.
and it's taken extremely seriously, and it's just like, okay, settle down. But
Oh,
it maybe
right.
has something to do with this like comfort level.
Like the cartoon of Muhammad or whatever. That's an
Hmm.
inappropriate joke.
Yeah, right. Or if you do make like a gay joke or a whatever, a race joke or whatever the case may be,
The
then it's
political
just like, oh,
correctness
you
stuff.
bigot, whatever, right?
Right.
But
The political correctness noose.
yeah, right. And so then it's interesting. And different folks can joke about different things, and then just in the context, I think it does have to do something with the culture. I don't think there's maybe a universal humor, just something that's unexpected based on some context.
Well, people talk about a sense of humor, and I'm wondering if the sense of humor, sort of like music, is just imprinted onto your psyche. Like
Mm,
I would categorize it as being part of your personality, is your sense of
hmm.
humor.
Yeah, and you know what? I think there's also just like the most primitive sense of humor. I think that is maybe cross-cultural. Let's say would be more of this kind of slapstick stuff. And that's what kids laugh at too. It's like,
Right.
you fall, like you slip on a banana, and you fall on your ass, and
Or
the kid
okay,
finds it hilarious.
what they call it scatological humor.
Scatological, like
Yeah.
fecal.
Well,
That's
so
what it
it's
sounds like.
about scatological humor. I mean, you got the translation. I don't know if it's Latin or Greek, but um, yeah, it's exactly fart jokes. Like
Aha, yeah, yeah, yeah.
like that's scatological humor.
Got it. Right. So like if someone from a different country watched like the Three Stooges and you didn't really listen to it, like it would still be hilarious because they're just like messing with each other physically, making stupid noises. You don't need an interpreter to explain the joke to you. They're just acting foolish.
Yeah. There's another potential function of humor, and that has to do with status.
Hmm.
And so one idea is that the comedian is the only person in the kingdom that can tell the truth.
Oh, I have heard something about this. Or they're like, well, yeah, we'll continue before I interject.
So if a deeper question might be, what's the function of humor and like how we get it? And the secondary question is, okay, now that it's here, how do we use it, right? The is versus ought.
Hmm.
And then the question is, where does a sense of humor come from? Like if you're a
Hmm.
developmental psychologist, is that a potential field of research?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, for me personally, and I've seen it used a lot in social situations, like the purpose could be more of like diffusing an otherwise stressful situation, maybe
Yeah, I've definitely seen it used
deflating.
a social way too.
Hmm.
And so going back to this like mythological metaphor,
Hmm.
I think it's like you have the good Jedi and the dark side. And
Hmm.
it's like you could gently use a joke to correct somebody rather than like a, full frontal confrontation.
Hmm.
And so there's the individual versus the tribal view. So one, you could see humor as a way of what in Australia they say taking the mickey out of you. It's like deflating your ego. And so one of the tests of leadership is like, can you tolerate the comedian?
Hmm.
And that's really relevant to our culture now with the cancel culture. It's like, what are the limits of free speech? Like what's comedy?
Hmm.
And when you get into mind reading, it's dangerous territory.
For sure. And something that could be maybe seen as a joke or something that's humorous at the same time could also be interpreted as mockery or insulting and demeaning.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the
Um,
thing. I saw
hmm.
this video about the Pepe meme.
Hmm.
And so they had like Pepe with who looked like Trump. He had like Trump's hair and he was blonde.
Hmm.
And the video made the comment like, okay, so this has been declared a hate symbol by the left. And
Hmm.
then you could ask, well, if Pepe is insulting and Hispanic Pepe is insulting Hispanics, does that mean Trump Pepe is insulting Trump?
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like such a ridiculous thing, and the internet does so many things just for a laugh. It's not anything to mean anything, but I don't know.
Beware the 4chan trolls. Wait, what
Yeah, exactly.
series we saw?
I forgot. It was on Hulu, I think, or some streaming service.
And
And
there
it was pretty out there.
this like deep system of culture magic.
Meme magic.
Meme magic, that's right.
Yeah. I'm like, what the? I almost thought like the whole documentary was a troll, but then it's like you're not sure.
It's the ultimate Borat.
Yeah, exactly.
Borat troll.
And that's for the people who do that stuff. That's what makes it even more hilarious is when people are like confused and like kind of sort of buying in, but not really. And it's just like ridiculous enough to be like, this can't be right. But then like, but what if it is?
I think
Yeah.
that like in between like uncanny middle, let's call it, is
Hmm.
exactly why I love Troll 2, is because it's like really, really trying to be serious, but then it's like,
Yeah.
oh no, this can't be serious. This has to be a joke. Like this
Right.
has to be like some sort of prank. This cannot be real.
Exactly. Exactly
Serious
the
and
same kind of
trying.
thing.
No, this is can't be real.
But if they like, I think it was more funny because were seriously trying to make it good.
I know.
Yeah, and it's kind of like remember that documentary? I think it was called like the best worst movie or something.
Oh yeah.
And they actually brought on the directors and like the writers into this thing. And then all of a sudden my heart kind of sunk a little bit because everyone there is basically there to like because it's so horrible. And when they were interviewed, they were saying how much their movie is finally getting attention and we worked so hard on this. And then I had very mixed feelings at that point with the poor creators. But the movie has become a cult classic because of that, because of just how terrible it
It
is.
was just such an accidental fluke, all these weird, like coincidental things. And what's funny too, like I've studied story structure, man. And it's
Mhm.
like they hit all the beats, but it's like, ah.
I mean, yeah, some of their things is what, like the bologna sandwich is what's going to undo like the vegan troll demons.
Exactly.
That was like the final nuke that will, and this is like
Macaroni sandwich.
I can't. I mean, maybe those directors are playing the longest troll like like scheme ever. Like a 40-year troll. Like, yeah, we were actually trolling you guys from the beginning. That's why it's called Troll 2.
They coined the term troll.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe
Even
we gotta bust that
Arnold
thing out again
Schwarzenegger in the
sometime.
movie.
But then then that movie becomes so quotable, and that's also kind of interesting. The whole like and most of the quotes that I remember, it's usually in the context of something humorous.
Yeah. No more
It's
popcorn. No more popcorn.
yes. Oh man, classic. Should definitely bust that out again. I haven't seen that in years. We have a DVD somewhere, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like one kind of humor. It just I don't know
I need a
if that's
soundboard
like
though.
yeah,
Link below.
yeah, definitely. But to move on, so that's like a almost kind of like a making fun of type of humor. I don't know. Uh,
I will not be mocked. I will not be mocked.
yeah, and I feel like there's other kinds too. That something that's maybe more like a play on words or something that's more clever.
Yeah, witty, or that's the word, is witty or clever,
Hmm.
versus like joy in your belly laugh.
Yeah. And they usually have this like unexpected turn. They're
Mhm.
like setting you up for some like anticipation. And even though you know it's a joke, so they're gonna pull the rug out from under you at the end. It's still fun and entertaining to see where it goes.
Mhm.
A lot of joke tellers, the writers that do that are excellent at that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was listening to Roseanne Barr on Jordan Peterson, and it's
Hmm.
interesting to hear him analyze her theory of humor.
Mm,
And comedy is a sort of truth telling, the whole like
yeah,
jester in the court thing, or canary
right.
in the coal mine. And the thing that was really cool was this idea of like humor as a way of detecting truth
Mm,
or sharing truth.
yeah. Or maybe or even validating your own thoughts that you weren't sure if other people have, but now that someone's on stage sharing these things, it's like, oh, I've thought that too. Maybe this is not so weird if it's like, socially shunned. Um,
Yeah, so there's this shared humanity, like lessening of shame, I'm alone, and more like, hey, I belong. I am part of this empathetic tribe.
yeah. And also just kind of an irreverence too for all the structures that maybe get mundane and tiresome.
I solemnly swear I'm up to no good.
What's that one?
It's Harry Potter.
Oh, okay,
So there
okay.
are these two characters, the Weasley twins, and they're just like pranksters.
Hmm.
And they have this map called the Marauders map, and part of the magic of the map is saying, "I solemnly swear I'm up to no good."
I see. Yeah,
And to me, that's just
quotes are
like the
fun.
spirit of like playful mischievousness.
For sure. Yeah, I do think it does play an important role in society, though, since you were bringing that up.
Hmm.
And I think he even brought up that, like, the comedians, maybe in historical context, were the ones that were allowed to tell the truth
Hmm.
and, maybe tell the emperor, hey, you don't have any clothes on. That's the role they play when everyone else pretends that, you know, whatever's happening.
So two interesting facts. So the first is the Canterbury Tales. And so
Hmm.
this is like classical medieval literature. And there's a frame story around it. And the frame story is that the author was on a pilgrimage, going to be
Hmm.
saying our prayers in the pilgrimage. And while he
Hmm.
was on the pilgrimage, these different characters told him stories. And
Hmm.
those it starts out with like the knight's tale is like the story from the night, and then they have like the nun's tale, and so they have each one of them. They say, "Wow, that disclaimer! Like I didn't invent this. I'm just relaying what I heard."
Hmm. Okay. And so that's how he got away with it for the Canterbury Tales. Is that a historical account?
Yeah, and he didn't get, what would you say, censored, or so there's this interesting relationship between like political censorship and artistic creativity, which brings me
Hmm.
to the second example is Shakespeare. And so I forget the name of his compadre. So Shakespeare had like a drama writing buddy,
Hmm.
and his buddy was arrested by the crown for mocking the king. And
Hmm.
I think he was taken to the Tower of London and beheaded or something like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then Shakespeare thought, hmm, I might want to change around the characters a little bit. Yes, this is the King of Denmark we're talking about.
Right. 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 Yeah, dude, that's scary.
Well, here's the
Yeah.
beauty. Here's the beauty, I think, and maybe this is just the romantic in me, but like
Hmm.
these harsh conditions created this like window of opportunity for artistic creativity. I'm not saying we should artificially induce this kind of misery on people, but like, that testament to the human spirit to come up with something cool.
Yeah, maybe it's just kind of like a side effect when that happens, a coping mechanism that culturally will come out. And I don't know, the thing is, I also don't know a lot about humors from different cultures and across time, because I feel like English or American we can kind of get, but
And very frequently the Canadians.
the Canadians, yeah. But it doesn't translate well.
The Canadian comedian.
There's quite a few.
I know.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like him too. Also this guy. What?
Right. It was like Jim Carrey, I believe,
Yep.
and Mike Myers.
Ryan Reynolds
Right. Well, he's not really, I guess he's plays Deadpool or whatever. It's just
does play dead.
comedy. Yeah.
Even his like videos have this like dry kind of
Oh, he does some, yeah. No, that's true. Have
alcohol
you seen
video.
him play uh that song with Will Ferrell? It was like
No,
a viral clip where they were singing. It was pretty funny.
that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Talking about cowbells.
No, no, but that was also pretty good. Yeah, so speaking of getting beheaded because you told a joke
About the king or queen.
about the king or queen, it's a lot of that's happening now, I feel like, with a lot of this cancellation.
Well, and here's the thing. We saw this documentary about North Korea the other day. Were you
Yeah, that was crazy, man. Yeah.
that's like it just boggles my mind to think that that exists.
Hmm.
Now, he's not a king, but I mean the role he has is essentially that authoritarian, like evil king dictator. So,
Yeah. That level of brainwashing to me was just staggering.
mhm,
Like even after they had like escaped from North Korea and that the especially the elderly mother,
mhm.
when they were asking her about all of these things, she was just like reciting everything that she's been told. And it didn't actually click for her until like a year and a half later. Like, oh wait, I've been lied to the whole time. Like, she was
Well,
still holding on to the story
well, it's
that,
just a complete inversion.
yeah.
It's like the Americans are evil and the Koreans are godlike and our saviors. And then you
Hmm.
get that flipped around. It's like,
Right, right. Yeah, especially when it's like if you're 70 years old, man, that's a lot of time to flip around. Pretty ingrained. But
reprogram or let it go.
yeah. But okay, so this is the other thing. So like even as horrible as like this North Korea thing is, like have you seen Team America?
Mm-mm. Is that with the marionettes?
That's with the puppets.
Yeah.
And so they like make fun of like Kim Jong-il and this dictatorship, and he's like a puppet. It is absolutely hilarious. It's like he sings this song called "I'm So Lonely" because he's
Okay.
a dictator, and but everyone loves him. But they make fun of the accent in their South Park way.
Oh man.
I'm so lonely. I'm so lonely and terribly alone. They do this like whole musical thing. And I mean, the whole North Korea thing is absolutely horrendous. but yet it's funny to laugh at this thing, and it's absolutely hysterical.
Okay, great. So that's like one of the, I don't know, final pieces. I don't know what order we're in.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's I was listening to this interview between Rogan and Dave Chappelle,
Hmm.
and it was really cool because they're both professional comedians, like top of their game, and to like hear them analyze comedy was really cool.
Hmm.
And there's something I've loved David Chappelle for, and and his idea to take something that's really dark and just like nasty and flip it into something funny. And it's kind of
Hmm.
what I think the South Park guys do. So like one of the most famous one was the blind KKK dragon
Oh,
who
absolutely hilarious.
who
Hilarious.
is actually a black dude.
Yeah. He was going to these black rallies, and they're like down with the N words and all this stuff, and everyone's like looking at each other, like, what's going on?
Exactly. And Dave Chappelle called that the alchemy of levity.
Hmm.
Alchemy is when you turn lead into gold. And
Yeah.
that's to me, that's like the highest function of humor is just to take what's miserable and just laugh at it.
Yes.
They transcend the suffering in a sense.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it just, and also just to kind of illustrate how absurd it is, the whole thing,
Mhm.
maybe, and have some kind of message. Um, I know Mel Brooks did one called The Producers. Do you remember they were doing a play?
I don't remember that.
So the concept of the story is that these two producers were trying to make the worst play possible. And they had some business scheme of how they could like make a lot of money off of just making the worst play possible. So the name of the play they came up was Springtime for Hitler. And so it was like Hitler and all these Nazis dancing and like singing songs. Um, but it just was absolutely hilarious because it was so absurd.
Mhm.
Um, making fun of the Kim Jong-un and Hitler and this like racist KKK black guy taking really nasty stuff and just kind of turning it on its head.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
the alchemy of levity.
Mhm. Now, I've seen other kinds of humor that just go straight dark. And the reason it's funny is because you could go even more absurdly darker. Like it's just so dark. It's just like, oh my God, like, get out of here. This is like these dead baby jokes with like
Oh
pitchforks.
yeah, it's almost like this like dare kind of game.
Right. It's like, this is absolutely dark and horrible. It's like, let's push that boundary and see if we can take it even another step.
Well, and the thing is too, you get like your own I don't know, you get to know your sense of humor and the other person's sense of humor.
It is a social bond thing too.
Mhm.
And then you have a lot of these like so-called inside jokes as well. Um, yeah, there's definitely a lot of utility in it. And what's also like kind of crazy to me, we talked a little bit earlier about the biology of it, but laughing, it's such a strange physiological response. It's like
Mhm.
this diaphragm spasm, and it's often uncontrollable. I would say actually when I was younger, it was uncontrollable. As I was getting older, laughter is almost like a conscious signal to say, I found that funny. Most people can control their laughter. Even if they find something funny, they can just not laugh, which is interesting.
So I was at this live comedy thing, and my buddy Josh took me there. We were working on being more extroverted, and the comedian guy started like messing with me,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Is he like insult humor me? Is this like
Hmm.
playful inversion? Like what's going on?" And so I
Hmm.
just like froze. I'm like, okay. But then what I think happened was in his mind, I mean, this is why mind reading is dangerous.
Hmm.
I think he saw it as a challenge of like,
Hmm.
I'm not gonna laugh at you. And he's like, oh, really?
Hmm.
I'm gonna
But
break you.
yeah, or it's also you're probably a tool for the rest of the audience. That's whenever I see
Oh
comedians do
yeah,
that.
right. You get
Yeah.
to be the gag gift that gets passed around.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. So it's not trying to get you to laugh. Maybe it's like, let's all have a moment with this guy or whatever.
Yeah, and maybe that's part of the test of you know, the jester in the king's
Hmm.
court. Can you
Hmm.
pass the comedian test?
Yeah, I'm sure it's really tricky. There's also another kind of observation I've been thinking about is often the times that I'm laughing the hardest, or it's like the most uncontrollable, is when I'm physically trying to prevent myself from laughing, and it makes it even more funny. And then it's like this like out of control spiral.
Oh yeah.
And it's like you literally have to leave. Like usually it's when you're supposed to like in a library or something, right? Or it's in a, or you have to be quiet.
Biggest Nickus.
Yes, biggest dickus. Talking about Monty Python.
That's right. Don't
Hmm.
laugh, soldier.
Right, right. Right. I don't know why it's so, it just escalates everything. That would be an interesting psychological question.
I also really like the Saturday Night Lives when that happened, where you see the people like starting to break character and they're just like
Yes, it just even watching it, it's more funny than the actual skit itself. Them trying to contain it. Yeah, I don't know why. I think humor is one of the more sophisticated like um, communication forms.
oh, 100%. I mean, like
Yeah.
it might even be up there with music. Like music can be
Hmm.
really complicated, but so can
Hmm.
humor.
Hmm.
That's an interesting question. But
Hmm.
what was that video I sent you? So there's this guy named Ayode. I'm probably mispronouncing it, but he's this
Hmm.
British comedian, and his
Hmm.
humor is just very like dry and ironic, and but witty. And
Hmm.
there's kind of like Borat kind of little like feistiness. Like, can you get the joke? Are you in on it?
Hmm. Hmm.
Maybe that's
Hmm.
not the right way to say it. No, that's not the right way to say it. It's I could link the video, but I he gave like a brilliant definition of irony, and
Hmm.
this definition was just spot on. It's like,
Hmm.
yes, that. Like you just put words to exactly why I think absurdity and irony is funny.
Hmm. That would be a good one to link. Yeah, I'd be curious. It's so irony is one of those words in humor. It's just like you know what it is when you hear it, but it's really hard to like put a Webster dictionary definition of it down.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
so he wrote this book called Iota on Top, and it was made about this movie, and it was meant to be this ironic critique of the movie.
Okay. Yeah. Ironic
Seems
critique.
a very British thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, is this kind of like so there's a whole nother category. Is that like satire? An ironic critique?
Well, I mean, there's some what's his name? Jonathan Swift.
Yeah. That's what when you said ironic critique, that's kind of what I was thinking, the modest proposal.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's just like speaking totally straight and like serious about something absolutely absurd, and it's funny. Like we are eating babies to solve the hunger crisis or something.
Exactly. But I think it was more insidious. It was something like, we have an Irish problem and we have a hunger problem. I
Two
know.
in one.
We'll eat Irish kids.
Yep, yep. Yeah, it's perfect. And that's again, there's so many weird levels of sophistication.
And it's like the title is a modest proposal. Obviously, this is immodest and absurd off the chart.
Right. I mean, there's all of flags and signals that, okay, don't take, like, come on, this is so over the top. This can't be real. But what's even more funny, maybe, is if, like, maybe like, well, like, I'm trying to think of someone who might actually read that and be like, oh, this is terrible. Oh, heavens. I was thinking maybe like Grandma Kelly or something reading this. Oh, my heavens. Like, oh, come on. This is not real.
Oh man, that reminds me of something Peterson said. He's like, this is the country of South Park, and you guys are politically correct.
Right.
Yeah, that show's pretty politically incorrect.
Right. But they get a pass because it's like, oh, that's what they do, and everyone understands that. Yeah, it's interesting. And they'll take shots at everyone.
Well, and I think, and that's the beauty of their humor. It's just like all out chaos,
Hmm.
chaotic neutral humor.
Hmm. Hmm.
Maybe some chaotic good in there too.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about the irreverence part. It seems like a lot of the humor is definitely irreverent or kind of um, mocking authority in some way.
Right.
So maybe humor is more of like the common folks
I didn't hurt
thing.
you.
Yeah,
It was
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I wonder if he's mocking Americans there.
I don't know. Yeah, no, I think yeah. I think the idea was that they had this very sophisticated, politically read surf peasant out like digging into shit. I'm pretty sure that was part of the humor.
Yes. That's what happens when you educate the peasants.
Yes. He's talking, and the aristocracy have no right to my labor as a free worker, blah blah blah. And just like this, like yeah, farmer.
You own the means of production.
Yes, that's what it was. Yeah, that has it's this that these things that don't belong together, and it just is it becomes humorous.
And I think the joke happens at the highest level when you have like multiple jokes happening simultaneously.
Hmm.
Like a chord in music, you get these three notes together and they just go great together. And
Hmm.
when you get
Hmm.
like that like lined up joke from like three different dimensions at once, that's when it's just hilarious because your brain can't even process why the first one's funny.
Hmm. For sure. Yeah, yeah. And it's also interesting though. It's like I feel like kids laugh at so many things early on. Maybe because they're still exploring. And maybe as you get into adult, the humor needs to get more sophisticated to be humorous because you're kind of pushing the boundaries
It can
of your
also
own
be why
understanding.
why you're using it too, right? I mean, if you use this
Yeah.
to cope with the darkness of life, then yeah, you
Yeah.
better make it palatable to adults.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Why do you think so? I was just thinking because there's like British humor, right? There's American humor, there's different kinds of humor, and they're very distinct.
Canadian humor.
And Canadian, well, I don't know if that's that
Let's
distinct
call
from
them
American humor.
American shapeshifters.
Um, but like, I remember when I was first introduced to British humor, I was just like, what? Like, it did not get it. Other than like Mr. Bean, but that's like a very like physical comedy
Yeah,
kind of act, which
slapstick
is more
level.
universal.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think that it's also very cultural. And maybe it's cultural because the different kinds of forms of authority are different in different countries and cultures.
Yeah, like the let's call it the Shakespeare's creativity crucible, right?
Hmm.
The political religious climate of the time is like this pressure cooker. So he's like very, and that's what's the genius about it, because he makes it playful and fun, but he just like delivers this deep wisdom with it.
Hmm.
And I think that's part of the success of the Harry Potter story too, is like you have this playful wizard like veneer, but beneath it there's some deep wisdom.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I love that humor for her is one of her priorities.
For her,
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling.
Yep.
Yeah, gotcha. That's yeah. I wish I could comment more on it, but I haven't read or watched the movies very much at all. So
No worries.
yeah.
Um, so another interesting thing is, um, let's see, forgot what I was gonna say. So you're talking about not being in on the Harry Potter mythos.
Yeah, you're commenting on how much you like that she includes humor in her writing.
Oh no, so that's what she said. they said, what's your magic formula for writing?
Oh, okay.
This interview, she said there's three things, and
Mm,
one of them is that it has to be funny. So it's a
okay.
priority for her.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Did you find that? Did you read that in her stories that there's a lot of humor, some humor?
Yes. And it's so brilliant to me that you can magically communicate humor through a book.
Hmm.
Like I imagine I'm like flipping the pages on this book and like I start laughing out loud. And if cats could think like humans, she'd think, okay, you're looking into a box of paper and it's making you laugh. Like, what is that box of paper?
Yeah. Yeah. A box of paper. Is that what we're calling books?
Yes, box of
Boxes of paper.
paper.
Um,
That's our inside joke now.
yeah, yeah. So I was thinking of also something that kind of irritates me. Um, and I don't know if it's just in like American culture or how we grew up, but people often make excuses that if they say something that's offensive or whatever, they say, "Oh, I was just joking,"
Oh yeah.
as kind of like an out. And I'm wondering why that's such like an accepted or like a go-to reason, because if you're joking, that means you're trying to get away with being irreverent or insulting.
Yeah, it's interesting because like um there's this idea of will, there's this idea of intent. And when someone says I was just joking, they could mean I was trying to be playful, I was trying to make you laugh. And then there could also be like what you're talking about is like someone says something like passive aggressive and nasty, and they're like, what did you just say? Like, I was just joking, it was ironic. Ha, 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 ha.
Right. Or it's like you're going out and someone's paying for a meal and it's like, can I get the $200 steak and lobster? And then you're like, huh? It's like, oh, I was just joking. It's like, maybe you were just testing the water a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I think jokes should be reserved for jokes.
Right. Not for an out. So that does bug me. But I guess it's you probably learn it pretty early on. I guess that's the reason I brought it up is that's probably as a kid, you realize that jokes can sometimes be mean, but if it's in a playful way, then or mean or inappropriate or something out of socially accepted context, but if it's a joke, then it's okay.
Well, so let's do the two extremes, right? So on one
Hmm.
extreme, there's a joke that's like, the prankster,
Hmm.
the practical joker, the trickster, right? So you're just doing this mirthful, playful joke because you want to make people laugh. So we're not
Hmm.
talking about this transcendent, alchemy stuff. I'm just like laughter for the sake of laughter. It's kind of like James Bond villains, like really, this is absurd.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And then on the other hand, you have like, uh, it's sort of worse than propaganda, but like this, yeah, using humor as an excuse to get away with emotional cowardice.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah. And there are some individuals that use it a lot more than others, and some rarely do it. But that is one of pet peeves of mine.
Well, then there's the
Is
other thing too, as we talked about like puppies who like play fight when they're growing up,
mhm.
right? Maybe part of that is this adolescent kind of spirit of testing boundaries, right? You can't tell me what to do.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there's definitely a special spirit of humor that happens in adolescence. Like I think a deep part of that, like tribal bonding and like, you have this music imprinted on you and you have these shared jokes imprinted on you and this like
Hmm.
shared culture during that adolescent period. It's like the emotional code.
Yeah, and I do think that the humor and the inside jokes also kind of build that smaller sense of identity apart from the greater crowds.
Yeah, I've read about this one thing, this experiment where they had people that were just hanging out, and I'm getting two of them mixed up. One was from Gladwell, the other one doesn't matter. So what they did was they just like recorded it with no audio, and they were just looking purely at social cues.
Mm,
And it's interesting to think about that, like, because a lot of rapport, like how much of that happens linguistically and how much is non-linguistic, like body language and social cues and things like this. So one way to do it is just to analyze a recording with no context at all. You're just like an
mm,
ethologist observing apes, and it's like,
mm,
okay, what's happening in this social situation? They're like, oh, they're doing social bonding,
mhm,
and so that they're getting together. And so if someone laughs, they might not even know what's going on, but they're part of the social bonding, so they laugh along. It's like, like when you're in a theater and people laugh, it like makes you laugh more because it's part of this like social
infectious.
bonding mechanism.
That's really interesting because then, yeah, all you're gauging it on is their physical interactions, not the content of the idea of the joke or something.
Right. Like you hear none of the
Mm-hmm.
pitch. I mean, you can read like the expressiveness or, but yeah, you can do it without context.
That's true. And then sometimes, yeah, just the way you speak, you're already being clued in that this is a joke or something. Like if you have an
Mm,
accent or like a higher volume. I don't know. So I can just tell when someone's in joke mode sometimes
yeah.
with very subtle cues.
I was thinking, let's imagine we're in like Star Trek times and we have this United Federation of Planets. Like, how do you negotiate humor between species?
Hmm.
Like, well, if we can figure that out, we can figure out how to communicate between human beings.
Hmm. Yeah, humor between species. Yeah, yeah. I think humor is probably underrated in terms of how important it is for psychological well-being.
Mhm,
Humor and laughter.
for
But I mean, there's the old adage, or I think that's the word, that laughter is the best medicine,
Oh yes,
something along those lines.
for sure. I haven't seen it, but I've been meaning to watch Patch Adams. That's the
Mm,
Robin Williams.
yeah, yeah. Hmm. Something about it. Maybe just not taking things so seriously.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The two classic dramatic images are the happy face and the sad face.
Hmm. True.
Tragedy and
And
comedy, brother. Tragedy and comedy.
yeah, I was thinking, we were talking about maybe discussing like free will and determinism, which can get pretty heavy. And then I was thinking of humor, and now I'm thinking of The Hitchhiker's Guide,
Oh yes.
kind of like play with this in this like absurdist way.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Very highbrow and about free will and determination, and do you have a choice, or is everything random, and all these wacky characters.
It's not
What?
like four ideas at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's highbrow. Maybe it is. It's definitely absurd.
Well, it's when I say highbrow, mm, I would say it is. I mean, it's like the
That's
guy is smart.
pretty absurd.
That guy is intelligent and smart. I forgot the writer, but he doesn't take himself too seriously. But it's about serious topics and just kind of like, if you just go too deep into this like hardcore philosophy and analyze every inch of life, you're just gonna get like stressed out and depressed. So why not just be playful with it? And then just like he comes off to me as like an intellectual kind of person who makes like a some more highbrow type of jokes
A little bit of
than
class involved.
the scatological humor or whatever we talked about earlier.
What's the James Bond? No, what was it? What was it? Tenet, I think, where
Hmm.
he asked this British guy. Oh gosh, I'm gonna mess up the joke. Um, he asked this British guy, "So, have you monopolized snobbery?" And the guy
Hmm.
says, No, but we have a controlling interest.
That's right. That's right. They were at this fancy restaurant and he asked for a to-go box for his like filet mignon or whatever. And he's like, "May I have a to-go box?" "You absolutely may not." Or I forgot what the waiter said. And then he made that comment about, "Do you British have whatever, monopoly on snobbery?" And then that was the line. Yeah, yeah. But I do think some good humor and satire can really diffuse otherwise stressful kinds of ways of thinking and routes to go down.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think as a kid, it was all fun and games because there's less responsibility.
Yeah.
But then as you get more responsibility, almost like maintaining that humor is almost essential, just so you don't go down that hole of everything is like a burden
Mhm.
and
Like Atlas carrying the world.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Lou's making
Looks
it
like
good, though.
yeah, yeah. Cool. So any other thoughts on humor or general things you'd like to touch on?
I'd like to explore a little bit more of this saying I'm joking as a form of cowardice.
Yeah, yeah.
As yeah, well one is how to deal with that. And I guess the benevolent answer would be to playfully alchemy them, to actually play with them.
Okay. Yeah. Or to kind of do a riposte on their fake joke somehow. I don't know. What do you mean by play with their alchemy?
See, that's when you get into Troll 2 territory. It's like,
Hmm.
is he joking me because he's insulting me, or is he joking me because he's helping me, or is he joking to like humiliate me? Is he joking to because I'm sad? Like,
Hmm. Yeah.
well, so anyways, I think there's a lot of people who've experienced malevolent humor. I don't know if you
Hmm.
I can't think of a better name than that, malevolent humor. And our sister sometimes will say things like that. Like, I'll make a joke. She's like, "Are you making fun of me?" Like, no,
Hmm.
this is absurd. I'm laughing at the absurdity of it.
Hmm. Hmm. Right. So that's maybe her taking it too seriously. But then
It's
there's sometimes
personal.
when
Personal.
it could be a veiled thing to maybe actually express a thought or feeling you have, but lessen the blow if you make it in a more of like a teasy kind of way. It's more endearing, whatever this fault.
And
I
that's
don't
kind
know. Is that
of
making sense?
present the correction as a joke idea.
I don't know. I'm just kind of exploring this territory that you've opened up. And
Yeah. So,
I,
sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, like so if there's some kind of like a flaw, but it's not like serious. And we call it teasing, I think, in our family. It's something characteristic about someone and you kind of point it out in a playful way.
Yeah, and like to me, that's like verbal roughhousing. It's a sort of like emotional affection. Like some guys are chummy, like hit you on the back. Hey, how's it going? I'm good to see you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And somebody
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I
don't
think
touch me. You violated my bubble. Don't touch me.
right, right. Or like, we talked last time that I just have this like funny fascination with like the ancient alien theory or hypothesis. And I don't know what it is. I like it. So like if you came up
Like
to me and say, "Hey
aliens.
Johnny, how are those aliens doing?" or something.
But it was aliens.
Yeah. But that's what I mean by a teasing. It's like, yeah, I get it, but I'm not going to be too insulted by I could be insulted by it if I wanted to, but I get where you're coming from.
Because sometimes I'll just like playfully poke at people just to when I like them. It's a kind of affection.
Hmm.
just to, you know, tease and poke a little in a playful way. And some people can't take it. And it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, so the choice is, you know, let's be more, you know, Disneyland in our humor.
Yeah. I think it's also that some people can't take it probably, but it's also the delivery
Mhm.
and what that person is used to receiving. And if someone messes with me, it sometimes could bug me. If someone else messes with me in the same exact manner, but just the way they did it, I am more assured that they're being playful and that's communicated in some, I don't know, like body language, tone of voice, facial expression during the delivery.
A wink.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on the context and things like that.
Too many variables.
Hmm. For sure. So what are we thinking? We good? A little
Well,
more?
I'm just thinking about this. So I'm sorry, I didn't finish my story. So like
Hmm.
for I don't remember what the challenge was. I just said to myself, okay, I'm not gonna tease anybody for and just see what happens. And a lot of people find that like magnetic. They're like, oh yeah, I like this guy. He's a good guy. And I thought that was really interesting. And so maybe the word that I'm using for teasing isn't like what it means for other people. Like you said, we have this, I don't know, maybe it's a cultural thing.
I think it meant something very specific in our family. And it usually means when you're pointing out some kind of like minor character flaw and then but not being mean about it. It's more endearing. It's like more an endearing character flaw trait. That's what I think of when I hear like a tease.
An endearing character flaw poke.
Yeah,
Like, oh, Steve is always late to the family reunion.
exactly. Or he's always leaving early. Where'd he go? That rascal. Yeah. Or just whatever it happens to be. Or like what was it? Like Leanne would say like Paschetti,
Oh
like she
yeah,
couldn't say it right. And so we'd tease her about Paschetti, but it wasn't to make fun of her. It was like more of an endearing thing,
absolutely endearing.
right? Yeah. Um, that's a tease, I would say.
Okay, that's interesting.
That's how I would think about it, at least.
Yeah, so that's important to know that it's endearing.
And it's right. It's not insulting or making fun of, even though they could be self-conscious about the specific thing, right?
In this book about boundaries, and one of the things it says is like you're responsible for your psyche, or like you're responsible for your soul. Uh, and you know, we could use whatever word you want, but it's like that's a really interesting question. And like, who's responsible for your emotions? Who's responsible for your thoughts?
Hmm.
And you know, where do you draw the line? And it's interesting conversation for sure. And that might just be to like the marker of adulthood. It's like, you know, you get your potty training. Okay, you can control your bladder. And like, okay, you know, okay, now you can control your stomach or whatever, your social relationships and your sense of humor. Okay, you got your sexual urges under
Hmm.
control. All right, all right. And then the psyche gets organized at these different levels.
Hmm. Yeah, and so that was in response to like the idea of being able to navigate insults or make or I don't know what was.
Yeah, so there's this idea of teasing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the idea is that teasing is a character flaw, and but it's endearing, and
Hmm.
it's like a nickname, and that like brings pleasant memories.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay.
Speaking of these like parallel narratives, this is kind of a similar thing. It's like one person is teasing, they're trying to be endearing, and then the other person is like vulnerable, wounded, self-conscious, and they interpret this playful interaction as an attack.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's like I said, it's part of it's the delivery and part of it's the receiving, and it can
Yes,
go bad on both
for
sides.
sure.
Yeah.
And
And
and it's thing because like Lou bit me the other day. She was like playing, but I
mm,
knew it was playing.
yeah, yeah.
Like if she was angry, I could feel it in her. So this is more like a little playful.
Right,
And so
right.
I gave her a little playful hit back, and she seemed to like that.
Hmm. Now I also know like different kinds of cultures too. There's a lot of nicknames that go on, and it's a lot of it has to do with maybe like their physical appearance.
Oh yeah, especially in the military. Like they're ruthless with their nicknames, but I think it's part of the tribal bonding process.
And it's also this like a teasing, endearing thing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Peterson talks about this as like working class guys having this like humor test, which is similar to the Joker thing. It's like, look, are you going to be narcissistic and self-absorbed and like this diva, or are you going to get your hands dirty and work with us in the sun six
Hmm.
days a week? And it's like if you can't pass that poke test, it's like we don't trust you.
Hmm. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't think about the military context, but that does make sense. Just like if you can't handle that, then you're not going to handle warfare when things are going south.
Right,
If
exactly.
you're that sensitive, yeah. But I was thinking like I know in like some of the Spanish culture around here, like nicknames for people is like, like Gordo,
Oh yeah,
basically means like big guy or like
right.
shorty
It's totally effective.
or
Yeah,
or skinny like beanpole or like then that's their name. But
flaco,
it's what's that one?
flaco.
Yeah. What's that?
It's skinny.
Flaco? Skinny. Okay. But I mean these are like their names and some people who are sensitive maybe would be insulted by these things. But other people like, oh, there's big guy, fat guy. And it's funny and we all understand it's like it's obviously he's large, so let's not ignore the elephant in the room,
Right.
which might be more politically correct or whatever,
And maybe that's part of the deflating the tension and like putting people at ease.
Yeah, yeah. But when you have a lot of these kind of names and someone else would hear it from a different culture, let's say someone who's more politically correct would hear this and be like, "Oh, that's hateful and hurtful and all this stuff."
How
It's
about
like,
Sleepy Joe?
yeah,
Sleepy
yeah,
Joe
Sleepy
bad.
Joe. Yeah.
I think we talked about that. Trump's humor being a little bit of a bullying kind of humor.
Mm, right, right. He makes up names for people to like basically destroy them or whatever you want to call it.
Totally owned.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah. Um, it's interesting how humor is different across people, how it's delivered, how it's received. Some people are better at it, some are worse. Um, I know, so I'm not gonna name names, but I've known someone who's just like really tried hard to be humorous, and it's just unable to deliver, and it just was so awkward every time.
His name is Lieutenant Commander Data.
Yeah, but the fact, well, that's also like a meta joke in there.
Yes, we're hitting
Yeah,
multiple levels at the same
yeah, yeah.
time.
But
Comedy points achieved.
yeah, yeah. And it was the thing where no one was laughing, but every time this person said the joke, they would laugh at it, to their own joke, and it was just really uncomfortable. And then it happened so often that it was just funny, just because of how that person just told bad jokes. So then it was like this endearing tease of how terrible the jokes were, and
Exactly.
how terrible the delivery was.
Yeah, and that's honest, right? That's people honestly say, yep, the delivery was terrible.
Right? It's like, oh, it's another one of these jokes. Okay, let's hear it. You know.
That's called humoring someone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Can you hear Lou?
Mm-mm.
All right. Get out of the show. Do you remember Cosmic Creepers?
No, it's Cosmic Creepers.
That's that's the cat from Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
Okay, that's I know you were into that a lot more than I was.
Oh, obsessed. I'm absolutely
Yeah,
obsessed with that movie.
right. What was her name? Angela
And
Lansbury.
mhm.
That's right.
The Magical Nanny.
Right. I just thought it was amazing they had cartoons and real people in the same movie. I was like, whoa. This is like before Roger Rabbit or whatever.
We must find the Star of Astaroth.
Man, you were like obsessed with like myth and story even back then, huh? Like
Yes,
the artifact of whatever that's gonna do something.
the inscription on the Star of Astaroth.
Hmm. Yeah, I was definitely more lowbrow. I just liked seeing Coyote get smashed by anvils repeatedly. That was that was my sense of humor back then.
So,
Still is sometimes.
how about Speedy Gonzales?
Not as much. I liked yeah, slapstick Stooges. Speedy wasn't as funny.
My name is Slowpoke Rodriguez.
Yeah. Yeah, it was okay. Tom and Jerry, man, they just find every possible way to dismember each other and
I
do all these horrible
absolutely love
things.
Pinky and the Brain, and I really miss the
Mm,
Animaniacs because they got
mhm,
it right. And maybe this is part of Disney's genius when they're, at their best, is there's like Pinky who does like the slapstick goofy humor, and then
mhm,
Brain is doing all these like witty insults and things. So you have
mhm.
like the adult level humor and the kids level humor.
Yeah, yeah. And even Brain, who's supposed to be this genius thing, he's also egotistical. Usually his plots are just so cockamamie, ridiculous, but
What are
he
we
thinks
going
he's
to
like
do tonight,
the
Pinky?
mastermind. Mhm.
The same thing we do every night. Try to take over the world.
It was a great show.
It was an awesome show.
Yeah. Yeah.
I miss the Animaniacs too, man. Those were funny.
Hmm. There was actually a recent clip I saw. I don't know if it went viral,
I
but
haven't seen SpongeBob. Sorry for interrupting.
yeah.
I haven't seen SpongeBob, but from my understanding is it's very similar thing where you have like the kid level. Oh, look, there's a starfish and a sponge, and they're having fun. And but like the adult tech, it's like wink, wink.
Yeah. I haven't seen it much, but I know what you're talking about. And so that makes it fun for the parents too, with their kids
Yeah,
are watching a little bit, little wink to the parents.
yeah.
Yeah.
The Simpsons is genius at that too, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, what I was gonna mention is there was a clip that went viral recently with since we're talking about Pinky and the Brain. The voice actor who does Pinky
Mhm.
was like doing a podcast and they were doing voices with Seth Green. Do you know who Seth Green is?
I think so.
He's a guy he does like Robot Chicken.
Oh yeah, yeah. Kind of red.
He was the son of Dr. Evil in the Austin Powers,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes. I think he was in Heroes also, right? Like the comic.
Ah, maybe. He
Comic.
also does the voice of one of the characters in Family Guy.
Okay. I
And
need to go
so,
to the
but
bathroom real quick. Can I pause it?
of course.
Right.
Mhm.
This is our first uh pause in our episode in terms of editing. Okay. Um, so it occurred to me, or I was thinking about this movie called The Death of Stalin. Have you heard about this?
Well, so before we paused, I was right in the middle of finishing up
Oh, okay.
a
Sorry
story.
about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the voice actor for Pinky and the voice actor for Guy and Family Guy, Seth Green, we were talking about him, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So they were doing a podcast together and they were doing their voices of their characters, but they were rehearsing a scene from Star Wars with Anakin and Obi-Wan, and Anakin is like burning and crawling out of the lava or whatever, right? And one of them was Pinky and the other one was Brian, and they were like trying to read the script using those voices for these characters, and it was just hilarious because they're like voices you recognize in this crazy situation, but both of the voice actors were trying to keep a straight face the whole time, and it was just like made it even more funny. Anyways, we'll definitely link it in the comments.
Oh yeah. No, let's call that higher order humor where you
Hmm.
empathize with the comedian trying not to laugh.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that does sound pretty awesome. And
yeah. But you can continue with what you were you were saying. I just wanted to finish that since that's where we paused on.
Yeah, no, thank you for remembering that, and
Mhm,
that's a good point too. Like I absolutely love that Family Guy style of humor.
mhm.
And what's the Family Guy's name?
Seth Green? Oh,
Yeah.
you mean the Seth MacFarlane?
Yes. That's why I was confused.
MacFarlane. Yeah.
The Seths.
Yeah, double Seth.
Double Seth all the way.
So, what was what you were just mentioning? I
Oh,
I I distracted you. So,
no. My bladder distracted us both.
yes, blame your bladder.
Um, so I was talking about the death of Stalin, and the death of
Yes.
Stalin is this really black comedy. It's Steve Buscemi's in it. I think you'd like it.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's kind of like Fargo-esque level of black comedy.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so what happens is Stalin is getting ill, and everyone is like wants him dead, but doesn't want to say it. And so they're all
Hmm.
just like making these jokes to kind of like test, like what we were talking about. It's like,
Hmm.
oh yes, it would be so tragic if he died. I was just kidding.
Right. Right. Talking in code and just kind of escalating it a little bit at a time and like looking
Right.
around.
One's like, he's the secret, he's the doctor, and like he's this person. What's he going to say? Do I trust him? Do I not? Let's explore.
Yeah. The Death of Stalin, is that what it was called?
Yes. Maybe we
Okay.
should watch this as our homework. We should like watch this together and analyze the humor metrics.
Could be. Yeah. Could be a lot in there. Cool. Well, I think what we've been going on for almost an hour and a half now.
Almost.
So I think getting ready to wrap it up,
Okay.
if that's all right with you.
Yes, but you must have a secret code so you don't declare it verbally. We're losing
What is it like?
viewers, Johnny. We're losing viewers. We want them to stay to the end. We want to hold their attention. Give us your attention. Like and
Yeah,
subscribe.
that was a good one.
Abandon your life. Watch more YouTube.
See, this is going to be a perfect clip that we can just put on the end. Like and subscribe.
Thumbnail worthy.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I gotta say, this is one of the more fun podcasts that
Excellent.
we've had. Yeah. Although we do have a lot of fun
Indeed.
in our other ones. So cool. Well, had a great time, and I
I'm glad.
guess yeah, and I guess we'll see everyone next time.
And always be curious.